The South Dakota Rapid City mission is the biggest mission geographically, at least in the continental U.S. I think the Alaska missions are bigger, but it's one of the biggest even in the whole world. It's just huge. It covers a quarter, the northeastern corner of Wyoming, full quarter of it. It covers probably about the top third of Nebraska, all the way across, the western third of Minnesota, all the way down, top to bottom, and it covers all of North Dakota and all of South Dakota. It even has just this little random bit of Montana, this little random sliver of Iowa. So total, it goes into 7 states, but really it significantly goes into 5. And so that makes it actually kind of fun. There's a lot of traveling, a lot of traveling. Our mission has, I don't remember the stats anymore, I think 20% more of the missionaries in our mission have cars than the average mission in the 48 states. Because we're so spread out, you just can't function without a car in most areas. You'd be too dependent on the members or someone to give you a ride. So most of the time you'll have a car. As far as history goes, there's actually a lot of cool history. In Casper, Wyoming, that's my first area actually. I love that place. And that's where the pioneers came through. All of the trails, the Oregon Trail, the Mormon Trail, all those western bound trails converge right where Casper is, because that's where the pass is, where it's most convenient to go through onto the west. And so the final crossing of the Sweetwater River is near there. I think it's within an hour of Casper. Martin's Cove is an hour away. I got to go there twice while I was there, and that was so cool. There's a really cool museum there about all those different trails, and so there's a lot of history in Casper. Then you got South Dakota, or Rapid City, South Dakota. That's the headquarters. You got Mount Rushmore 20 minutes away, and the tradition is all the exiting missionaries go there. So the mission president takes all the missionaries that are going home, and they go to Mount Rushmore the day before they go home. And that's just a lot of fun. And there's this really cool museum that they've got there. In North Dakota, just a fun little thing, it's in Rugby. There's a town called Rugby, and there's a monument there because that's the exact center of the North American continent. And so that's in our mission as well. Some other history. Those are all the significant bits of history that I can remember offhand. So that's really cool. The church is very spread out. The reason we're so geographically huge is because it's mostly farmland. It's mostly rural. So you got kind of a semi-big city, like 50-ish thousand, 70-ish thousand at the best. And that's usually where you're stationed. And you got all these towns all around that are like a few thousand, 10,000 maybe, people all just scattered around, and your areas are just huge. My last area was Dickinson, North Dakota, and we covered probably halfway up the state, all the way a little bit into South Dakota, just north to south, and then west to east it was relatively large as well. So you'll be driving a lot, and members are awesome. They're very helpful. They understand that we have to drive a lot. And often there's at least one member who's really willing just to drive you around to all these outlying places. Because you have limited miles on your own car. So you can't just drive out to these random places all the time. So you have a lot of help there, which is cool. So it's really spread out. Small wards, small branches. Right now there are, I believe, 6 stakes and one district. And I've been told it's the only district in the United States. I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard. But the church is growing a lot. When I was there, 1 stake split. I think maybe 2. We had a lot of zones split because that's when all the influx of the missionaries came in. So there were a lot of zones splitting, and there was definitely 1 stake split. And that was in North Dakota. It's booming up there because of the oil field. So many people are moving in, and a lot of them are members. When I served in Williston about 2 years ago, in fact, 2 years ago is when I was transferred out of Williston. And 1 year ago, I mean. So That time there were 2 wards. There was Williston First Ward and Second Ward, and it split the city down the middle. And then Second Ward also had an outlying town named Watford City. And then 2 weeks after I got there, they split the ward so that Watford City had its own branch, and then they had to adjust the boundaries for first and second. And that was part of the Bismarck stake. Well, shortly after that, I think just 5 months after that, the stake split. So now there's a Minot stake and a Bismarck stake. And I just talked to a member recently, and soon there's going to be a 3rd ward in Williston. And so the church is just growing like crazy in North Dakota because of the oil field and bringing in all those members. And the culture there is so great. It's always different in each area you go. Castro is almost like a little Utah because there's so many members there, so many wards, and it's a little town of 70,000 people, 8 wards. And so it was almost like serving in Utah when I was there. In Williston, the culture is a bit different because you've got all of these different people from all over the world coming in. And so you've got all these different cultures, all these different outlooks of life, all these different reasons for being there. And everybody just gets along. It's so cool. And there's just no judgmental anything. Nobody's very judgmental. Often, every single week, there was at least a couple of people that would come in their muddy work boots and torn up jeans and jackets and things because they only had an hour or 2 that they could get off of their work site drilling for oil and come to church to take the sacrament, and then they would have to go back to work. And so I think the members in North Dakota, are, at least in the oil field part of North Dakota, are very dedicated. And they have a lot of money and a lot of resources to help the missionaries, and so they do. They're just very missionary minded, and they're so excited to share the gospel with their friends, with the people that they work with. And like I said, people come from all over the world, and most of them are coming to start over. They're coming from wherever they were with nothing because of the economy, and they go to the oil field where they pay out the nose. And so they're just very humble people. They're very ready for the gospel, and it's so cool. That was my favorite area. Worthington, Minnesota is very Hispanic, mostly Guatemalan. And the members there are really cool. They're also very helpful, especially the Hispanics. They're very missionary minded, I found. And so the culture it varies from place to place, but in general, it's very spread out, and you've always got some people to help you out, and they're very willing to, and it's great.